Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about something very specific and special to me, which is intellectual properties and what is the rights of fans of intellectual properties over the creators. All right, it's a weird topic, so I beg your patience. Let's get into this and we'll talk it through. All right, so there are distinct intellectual properties now that very clearly open the discussion of should fans have distinct and their own specific rights to an intellectual property that is now under siege from its own creators. What? That's kind of weird, Scott. What are you talking about? Let's talk it through. There's several of them. There's three specifically. I'm just going to give you three examples. There's actually, there's so many examples of this. I think I'll give you four examples today. Here's four intellectual properties that are under siege by their own creators, okay? First and foremost, the Harry Potter world, right? There is a lot of fans who really invested, who read the Harry Potter books, the first 7 books, absolutely fell in love with this world, and now are in a great deal of pain because it, in my opinion, the intellectual property is under siege by its own creator, which is J.K. Rowling. Now, what do I mean by, how is J.K. Rowling sieging the Harry Potter world? Well, she's like, hey, I'm the creator of Harry Potter, and I want to attach a lot of politics that a lot of the fans don't agree with to the property. She's very much doing that, right? Like, and there are a lot of fans, like, here's a good perfect example. You will find dozens of stories online in blog form or on YouTube or another area where somebody's like, I tattooed Harry Potter symbols on my body, and I'm so ashamed of what J.K. Rowling is doing that I now need to get this off my body. But tattoos are permanent, right? Like, they are just horribly in pain, right? Like, emotional and intellectual pain over the love they have for this property that now, very arguably, J.K. Rowling kind of hates the Harry Potter world. She will not write anything new in it, right? She wrote The Cursed Child. She didn't write that. She didn't write that on her own and like carry forward the story in a way that everybody was ready for. She said, here's a play that's going to not play in your country, most of the world, right? That was written by somebody else and that most people will struggle to make sure is not canon, right? Like, what? Like, and then she's like, oh, here's a prequel too that is like that undoes a lot of things you knew about the characters in the regular book. And everybody's like, do not want. Right? And it's really, really a problem, right? So it is in my opinion, it's very clear that the Harry Potter world is now under siege by its own creator. But there are fans, millions of fans, who love this work and want it to matter and remain and be a thing, right? And it's rough. It's really rough for these fans, right? Because they're struggling, right? What are some other properties like this? Game of Thrones, right? It has been years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years since George R.R. Martin wrote the last book. The entire series is finished, and yet he continues to play this game with fans that they're going to get another book. Are they ever going to get another book? Right? Every single day that passes speaks truth to the lie, right? Like, now I'm not actually, you can't really say that it's a lie because there's no proof it's a lie yet. I'm not saying, speaks truth to what feels like a lie to me, right? And honestly, I'm not kidding. I was jammed up next to George R.R. Martin in an elevator in Baltimore when he was at Balticon like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And so I've literally been in proximity, like I've been shoved up against him in an elevator, and I love his work. But the reality is, the idea right now is it feels like what he's doing is cruel, right? Promising a book that there's virtually no evidence will ever exist, right? Rather than saying, hey, this book is finished, I'm going to start a new series, or this book is finished and I'm super rich now, I don't need to write another word in it, so I'm going to anoint this incredibly talented young unknown author and let them carry forward the story, right? Give you a sequel to what you love, let you enjoy it, right? Rather than hold you hostage to this hollow, shallow promise, that you'll get another book. Oh, and then, by the way, then you have Patrick Rothfuss, who is the poor man's George R. R. Martin, doing exactly the same thing with his Killer Chronicles. Promising a book and continuing to do podcast after podcast after vlog of empty shelves of book that's 7-8 years from being that has not been delivered for 7 or 8 years, while the author writes articles and builds board games and does video game work, right? For people who were faithful to these creators, who gave them wealth and status, and now in return they get empty, shallow, painful promises that never come to fruition, right? It's frustrating, right? And here's another one, right? The alien world, right? So you got Ridley Scott, right? What are you going to do with Ridley Scott, right? So Ridley Scott brings out Alien. Brilliant film. I think it's in the Criterion Collection. It's like a classic, right? He just released Raised by Wolves. That thing is so bad, right? First of all, it's based on the Book of Enoch, right? Which is an apocryphal book, a book that didn't, like, the Nicene Creed looked at all the books of the Bible and like, in, out. Book of Enoch is an apocryphal book that was removed from the Holy Bible, right? He makes this thing, Raised by Wolves. It has 5 brilliant episodes, right? And then just sprawls out in a meaningless, utterly devoid of purpose, joy, or entertainment nonsense story that makes sense to no one, that is reviewed poorly. When Ridley Scott is attached to products now, it's very clear that he is not, like, that he has a great idea to present ideas and stories and no ability to present any kind of answer or resolution or conclusion, right? He is now, and the more he makes, it seems the more he damages the alien world, which is rich and robust and has millions of fans, right? So here's the question. If fans have given their money, their time, their attention, their love, their art, right, to create an intellectual property, and then the creator turns on that property through neglect, through abuse, through, like, and not, abuse might be too strong a word, but through neglect or through, like, their own, a lot of times people who grow rich from a thing come to hate the thing they grew rich from. The Winchester house is a perfect example of this, right? The widow of the guy who made all that money making Winchester rifles, like, absolutely detested guns, right? And, like, just grew to hate what made her wealthy, right? And like, kind of dedicated her life against it, right? So, but with intellectual properties, what do you do when an artist sieges what they built? What are the rights of a fan? What, an individual fan? What are the rights of a fan community? Do they have any right to protect the intellectual property they helped to build through their time, attention, money, art? Do they have a right to protect that thing from its own creator? The answer is yes. My answer is yes, we do. We know this. I know this to be true. I have a right. I don't know yet how to execute it in a way that respects the author and respects the community. That's the part we need to figure out. 2021 should be the year where we figure this out. There are multiple amazing, beautiful, wonderful intellectual properties that need to be protected from their creators. I think these include Killer Chronicle, Harry Potter, Alien, and the Game of Thrones. All 4 of those worlds desperately need protection from their creators. And in 2021, I think it's okay to gently, respectfully, carefully explore what options a fan community has for protecting what they love from a creator who no longer loves it. That's my opinion. What do you think? What is your answer to that question? Does an individual fan or a fan community have the right to protect an intellectual property, a world, from a creator who no longer loves it? And if that's the case, how do we respectfully and carefully proceed to do that? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.